and going through our breaking out our stories and everything. I mean, I think it behooves us to know what energies are at work and what rules are at play if you're going to play a game. You know, we have a tendency to not think of it that way, but you know, I mean, in reality, if you're going to plug something into the wall and use electricity, you kind of need to know a little bit, right? You don't want to plug, you know, a washing machine into, you know, a lamp outlet, right? So it's kind of that same thing. If we're emitting energy, what is it doing? And why is it doing it? And what can we shift to shift what it's doing, right? So that's kind of where we are. Last week we went through, let's see, what were they? So, rule 1, the law of divine oneness. Everything is connected to everything. Everything we say and do and believe has a corresponding effect on others and the universe around us. So the law of vibration. Everything in the universe moves, vibrates, and travels in circular patterns. The law of action is required for manifestation on this plane. We must engage in actions that support our wants and desires, right? So we're going to dive into part 2. So the law of correspondence. The principles or laws of physics that explain the physical world, energy, light, and vibration and motion, have their corresponding principles in the ethers. So that's that, as above, so below. Right? That's, you know, the master of universal law. He said them so concisely. Like every quote, every seminar I went to that talked universal law always spoke of Jesus, because, you know, he is the master of putting them in the most succinct form known.
Who's the he?
Jesus.
Oh.
Yeah, so when I think about this, the most blaring example to me is the umbilical cord. You know, we think that we can have the ability to cut that and maybe walk away, right? But it doesn't happen. Mothers are always connected to their children. Always, always, always. That's why those old wives' tales, you know, talk about mom having eyes in the back of her head. When mom's happy, everybody's happy. You know, whatever energy mom is carrying is going to funnel into her children. Period. And it doesn't matter where they are in the world, and it doesn't matter how old they are. You know, when something happens to your kid, you wake up in the middle of the night and you go, something happened to my kid, right? Like, we're connected. Mom's in this room, right?
They actually have those genome, you know, with all the genome mapping stuff now that I read in some science journal about how if you've had a son, they can tell, like, you have some cells in your body that have Y chromosomes because it's left from having that child and that male child. And so whenever you talk about this stuff, I always think about that. I always think like, wow. So if mom's got cells from each of us hanging out inside her body, like, okay.
Well, because we were one. You know, we were
She
one.
always knows when something happens too. Gosh darn it.
Yeah. I used to always tell my kids, you know, you're not ever going to be able to get by with anything because I'm going to know, right? You know, and, you know, one of the perfect examples, too, is even when we try, like during adoption and different things like that, you know, we, you know, so often, yay, so often, you know, a person may be 50 years old, but they're going to get a calling to find their mother, and they're going to trace that cord back. You know, it happens all the time, just all odds, right? You know, and then there's a knock on the door, and it's like, hey, I'm yours, you know? So what runs through us runs through them. And, you know, the coolest thing is that anytime, you know, our kids are having problems, all we have to do is work on us. But anyway, that's a really powerful example of that as above, so below. And it is with everything, right? Like it is with everything. Like whatever we're producing or manifesting on this plane, we're manifesting above as well. So changing you changes everything. What was it, Wayne Dyer that said, changing what you, how does he put it? Changing what you think about, how does he say that? I'll have to think about that a minute.
Exactly what you mean.
Yeah, he says changing how you think about things changes what, I don't know, I'll have to think about it for a minute.
One example he used was a person was moving to this new town and was asking this gentleman what this town was like, were the people friendly and stuff like that. And the man answered him and said, what was your town like before? And the man said, well, they were friendly and outgoing. He says, you'll find our town the same. He did the same experience with another man. He says, they were grumpy and just complaining all the time, negative. He says, well, you'll find this town to be the same.
Yeah, true. It's when you change what you think about, when you change the way you think about things, darn it. I had it in my head and I lost it. Anyway, good old Wayne Dyer.
When you change your mind about what you think things are like, the things are
in life
change.
Yeah. I'm going to have to look it up now because it's like bugging me. So when we look at the law of cause and effect, which is karma, right, which is our second law for the evening. Nothing happens by chance or outside of the laws of the universe. Every thought, word, and action has a reaction or consequence. We reap what we sow. So, and the whole what goes around comes around. Karma is like a boomerang. And the clearer you are, the faster you see it come back around. You know, literally one day I was standing here and it was storming outside and I was like, I hope my roof doesn't leak. A friend of mine who always says, you know, he's kind of got that, you know, I wonder if your roof's going to leak. And I looked up and I said, well, I hope it doesn't or something, you know, and entertained the thought for a minute. I swear to goodness, it wasn't 3 minutes later that I had water pouring through the ceiling. So when you get, you know, the clearer you get, the more you can see those words just come around like that, you know, because we're manifesting with more clarity. Everything you're saying has more clarity.
So how would you fix that? My roof's not going to leak?
I probably would say, like if that thought came through my mind, I sure as heck wouldn't say it out loud, number one. And number two, in my head, I'd say, your roof's fine. You know, just talk right back to it. Absolutely. Because we're like magnets, right? We're always attracting what we are. So if we're emitting negativity, we're going to receive negativity because that circle is always moving, always moving. You know, and then we're also interacting here with the law of divine oneness. So, you know, whatever we're putting out, whatever we're doing, whatever actions we're taking, whatever words we're saying, we're really saying them to us anyway. So, you know what I'm saying? So we're also interacting with that, which is Jesus's do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Which is interesting because we kind of look at some of his things like as commandments, and he's very much talking about these laws, right? If we're really living in that space of divine oneness and our karma is coming back around, anything I do to you is going to smack me right in the face, right? I'm going to get it right back, good or bad. Boom. Pretty instantaneously, too. He also used the love one another as you would love yourself, which, you know, we were given as a commandment. But again, it's that same activation of those same laws. Like, you know, the more you love yourself and view yourself as a temple, view yourself as a reflection or manifestation of that, the more, what am I trying to say? As we're doing this, love one another as you love yourself. If we aren't loving ourselves with that divine oneness and understanding that we're a manifestation of that, we're not going to be putting that out there, right? And if I'm not loving you as though you're a manifestation of divine oneness, I'm not going to be loving myself. So it's that, again, that same circle. Does that make sense? Did I say that right?
Well, there's a law of attraction, and one of the examples I like to use is like when let's say you're going to have a baby and name the baby. All of a sudden, whatever name you pick, you see it appear all over because you're attracted to that. It's within your mind, it's your energy, so you're attracted to that. So if you have positive energy,
Which
you're
is
going
what
to
I'm.
attract positive energy. And if you're just going to have a grumpy day, you'll find lots of ways to be grumpy.
Yep, absolutely. That's where we're headed to. Because it always comes back around to you. Because you're the only one that you can change. You're the only one that you can truly affect is yourself. And the more we tweak and bring ourselves into congruence, the more our world comes into congruence. Because it's all just reflecting back to us. You know, I am you. You are me. So what I see and find uncomfortable in you is me. It's usually, that's what our trigger is whatever we're not seeing in ourselves is blaring up in someone else. So the law of compensation is the flip side of karma, because it is about blessings and abundance, you know, the visible effects of our deeds, and as they come back around through the forms of money, inheritance, friendships, and those sorts of things.
Well, can't karma be good energy too?
Well, it's the opposite side, right? So
Okay.
action, you know, these laws are broken down pretty intensely. So karma has two sides, you know, so, and most often we think of karma as being our negative actions going out, right? So the law of correspondence is our positive actions going out, which it's just the flip side of the coin. Now, to activate this, it's giving and gratitude. Giving and gratitude. You know, the more we give, we activate the law of giving and receiving, which this is the same law. That's why when you said that, like, you know, that's the common name for this law. And the more that we give, the more we get, right? We do. And gratitude, because the universe loves to, when we start playing, it loves to reward us, you know? And in the same way, I think we're just not even seeing when it comes around most often, right? Because we're not used to looking at it. Gratitude is another magnet for good coming into your life, because partly with gratitude, I think it is bringing our awareness to the good things in our life in the first place, because most often we don't notice them. Our brain takes in 200 billion bits of information per second. We usually operate under 40. So think about that. If we're not used to looking at the good things in our life, we're not going to see them. So often, you know, when I'm working with people and they're fixated on something, it's like bringing their awareness out to the positive things that are actually happening in their lives, right? That's a big piece of it. So if we get back what we put out, then when we're stingy with our giving, there's nothing for the universe to send back, right? So a really positive thing with this is if you're in line to buy coffee, buy the person behind you a cup of coffee, you know? If you're walking by someplace and, you know, you buy a soda, give an extra $1 for a tip. You know, something that starts activating that reaching out. You know, now a lot. Pardon me?
It's contagious too. Somebody did that for me one time, and it was McDonald's, and all I got was a sweet tea. But I got up to the window. Oh, the person in front of you paid for it. I go, oh, okay, well then I'll return the favor and pay for the people behind me, and it just.
Isn't it amazing? I love it. Yeah, and we trigger it on other people when we're doing that. And it's like a big wheel, right? So through this whole process, every one of these laws, it's like a big wheel. And they're just like different spokes of this big wheel. But we need them all the spokes, to be activated to be able to operate and play the game for real. So put your worry out of being without and away and give. Just give. Give, give, give. But give with purpose, right? Give with purpose. And it can be $1, it can be $0.25, it can be filling the meter when you're getting ready to pull out, right? Just little things like that. And that's going to start bringing it back to you. Just like my checks coming in the mail, right? When I made the action, initiating the law of action, I made the action to put a deposit on this trip I wanted to take, right? And then I just started kind of doing things, for people or, little things like that to activate that law. And I got the checks in the mail that finished paying for the trip, right? So you definitely have the power. Just a minute, Nee. Worry and doubt are a fear of you actually being in charge. Now, one thing about it is that we're always struggling to be in control. And in reality, we're shirking the responsibility of being in control. So think about that. We're always struggling to be in control. But in reality, it's a fear of being in control that we're really struggling with because, if you realize that every second we're making a choice, anytime you don't, somebody else is playing your game, right?
Do you want me to take them out?
I think they do need to go out, if you don't mind.
They don't really need to be on their leashes, right?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, they do?
This one does for sure.
Okay.
So it all comes back to you no matter how you turn it. So bottom line is, jump in and play full out. Just decide that you're just going to make movement. Because like with the law of action, it doesn't even matter what action you're taking. If your intent is, I want this to happen, and I'm doing these things in effort to make this happen, right? You're all moving in that direction. Does that make sense? So again, changing you changes everything. So what do you think? What's that feel like to you? Do you see? Because I guess what I want us to start realizing is when we're contemplating these is how are you seeing these play out in your life? How are you seeing your actions activating these, knowing what the consequences are going to be and the reactions, right? Like that was huge for me when I was really healing. Like when I stumbled across these, that was like a turning point for me. It was like, oh, okay. Anytime I'm talking like this and I'm using this sort of language, this is what I'm pulling to me. Anytime I'm creating these actions and, stored up anger, whatever, this is what I'm pulling to me, pulling down the market fields and everything. So, it's just putting us in a place where we can play the game with some strategy. Because I think it is interesting, don't you, that like we've been put here. And science says we're playing a game, that we're playing like a video game. Or we are part of a video game. Which is even more interesting, right? So if that's true, then, why do some people have the game book and some don't, right? So there's a piece around that. And I think that we're coming to a time where it's like everybody is waking up and starting to play the game for real. So, how's that feel for you?